So, soft skills meeting number 1. What are soft skills? What comes to mind? Chris, no idea.
Communication.
Okay.
Connection.
Assessment? So it's more hard skill, right? Quantitative stuff. I throw posture in for a different reason.
Empathy. Empathy.
Sure. Anything else you want to throw in? Maybe. Actually, that's good. So all of them are right. When we look at soft skills specifically, actually, I will say. Word selection. Our nonverbals. So vocal tone, yeah, okay, so that's in general. How about specifically for our fields? Obviously all of these apply. How do we zoom in on these, right? So like, what are we communicating? What's the connection? What is the body
In
language?
terms of connection and communication go hand in hand with building rapport. In terms of building body language, I guess getting someone comfortable enough to, or comfortable enough to continue communicating.
Yeah. So our soft skills show up in a few different ways, right? So when we first meet somebody, what are you smirking at?
Your S in trust.
What's like an N?
It's just like upside down.
Whatever. So this really comes heavily in, say, intros or first connection points, initial contact with clients, right? Huge. Why is this so important in that first initial contact point?
First impression makes everything.
Why does it make everything?
Can't do anything without. If you have a bad first impression, it sets the tone.
What is the tone we're trying to set there? Boundary, trust,
Trust, inviting, safety.
safety, big word. So it conveys their value and their needs, our value. We're aligning our expectations, right? So we won't get into it right now, but what someone is willing to pay is a perception of what they're receiving for a value, right? So if someone is willing to pay $3,000, it's because it's matching the perceived value that they're hoping to get out of it, right? If someone perceives the value very, very low, they're not going to invest even $3, right? So we'll get into that, but it's a time to start understanding like what are the expectations, what values are they hoping to get out of our service and our experience with them. So in that initial, that's where setting the tone is super important. Trust, safety, these come in not necessarily just in do they know you, but it goes kind of to the unconscious, the subconscious of how's the body language? Are we able to choose words, nonverbals, because the neurological system is working at play, right? The mirror neurons, we're starting to look at, does their system trust the environment? Do they trust the body language and the words, the things that we're putting out in front of them? Because if someone doesn't trust anything about the experience in that moment, they're certainly not going to trust investing in you or in themselves, because that's primary goal number one in the world, right? Like, do they feel safe and trusted? Do we as individuals? If the answer is yes, then we're open to going deeper into training, like literally anything. So first and foremost, we need to connect here and understand what this is. Once we've gotten here, or at least are getting there, then we can go deeper into like, why are we sitting here? And then we can start opening up about what we can do, what I can provide, services, etc. But first and foremost, trust. So this is where we look at our word selection. We start looking at our body languages, because we want to put their nervous system in a place of trust and safety. So if I'm super closed off, even if they don't have a conscious awareness of it, they're perceiving this closed environment, right? But if I'm too open and they're very closed, we're going to be at a mismatch. So we'll get into it, but these are things that we want to be mindful of. And so we'll come back to it. So once they trust and safe, or at least on the way there, what is our primary goal for an intro or an initial touch point with a new client? It's our primary goal.
Provide as much value as we possibly can.
I'd say that's a next step, not first.
Keep fighting. Keep fighting.
I would say that goes probably trust, safety.
To understand
It's our primary objective.
what they want, or like to understand what their goals are, like what they're trying to get out of this.
Okay, so we'll boil that down to this, like, connect to them. Their health and fitness.
Understanding what roadblocks.
Oh wait, this is 3. 2.
Self-problem. Self-problem.
I took that as value. You said roadblocks?
Yeah.
Important, not. That's number 2. What's our primary objective, our deepest, most objective?
Connection. No.
Go deeper. What does that mean? Because that falls in deep connection, no?
Right.
How can we start the process of them having a life-changing transformation without even knowing what they want? Most important thing, and it doesn't happen like this is not a step system of like, step 1, I have to make sure I build trust. Like, these are, but our goal, I can guarantee you their success as a client will be super high, your close rate will be high, your package size will be high, it'll change their life. How do we do that? So help them believe it by connecting to their feelings and behaviors with their roadblocks. That gets us there. What's the ultimate goal of doing that? Where does that take us?
Solution-based thinking.
Which helps us do what?
What'd you say?
Awareness. Awareness of?
Behavior.
Hmm?
Awareness of
current state is. Connect them to them. Connect themselves to what their deepest driver is in life, because their health and fitness is just a reflection of a current state, right? So if we can help them enhance their awareness by connecting through their feelings and their behaviors, understanding their roadblocks, they will connect to themselves better. So let's say we didn't think about that. Let's say we got really good at connecting to them and understanding their needs and their health and fitness. We will only peel back such a layer, and they might have really good success. They might, invest in themselves, invest in us as a coach. They might stay with us for a long time. But in terms of truly, truly impacting and changing their life, there's always going to be something missing, because their health and fitness is the human purpose and the human design, one, to express health and fitness. Is that our primary goal in life? Absolutely not, right? It allows us to do and to interact and to express and experience, but we are not born to have a six-pack and lift heavy weights, right? It's a means to doing. So if we just connect them here and we say, okay, I understand your goal in a language of health and fitness really, really well, we're going to be missing a layer, right? So if their goal, let's say, is drop 20 pounds, VO2 max up 10 points, I don't know, be able to run a mile, whatever it is, what's the reason behind that, right?
Why is it so important?
Why is this so important? Maybe they were playing with their kids the other day and they felt super out of shape. That's a good reason, right? Let's go deeper. Why is that important? What's behind that? Does it go to the fact that, when they were growing up, their dad didn't connect with them? You don't know how deep it goes, but it all comes back to a place of wanting to be loved. That's really comes back to. And in an hour, you're not going to get here most of the time. But that's where the awareness, the feelings, the behaviors, just start putting these things up into them. You can peel these back in time. Some people you're never going to get there. And that's okay. But as long as you help them dive deeper and deeper in time, they will start experiencing more change. They'll learn more about themselves, and they might go deeper without us even knowing. But does it make sense how this is our primary goal working with a coach? This comes later. It's secondary, it's important, but this will still need to be understood to completely transform a life. In order to do this, how do we do this really, really well? What's the prerequisite to helping someone connect very, very deeply to themselves? We have to connect very, very deeply to ourselves, right? We need to be very grounded in why am I a coach? Emotionally, how am I sitting in front of other people, right? If we have roadblocks, asking for money or challenging people on their belief systems, if we have roadblocks on literally anything, it can be unrelated to work. But if we have roadblocks, that's going to be a hurdle in helping us put up a mirror for the individual in front of us. So we have to know ourselves really, really well. Because if we don't, we're only going to be able to help them go as deep as we've gone on ourselves. Because the illusion is there is another. Right? And that's where we can get all meta.
The illusion is what?
There is another. The illusion is there is another. So you can chew on that one, but it's the idea of we are one, right? As a consciousness. So separating ourselves is essentially breaking off from that piece of things. And so therefore, if we are having blocks within ourselves, we're only going to be able to bring our clients to a place of our blocks. So that's where, to be a coach, there's prerequisites to even be able to do this. We have to connect to ourselves first. And that's why if you look at it, what I'm teaching you in connecting with a coach is the same playbook that I'm having you guys improve as a team. Connect to yourselves as people. I don't care about you as an employee right now. Get to know yourself. How are you scheduling? How is your downtime? What's your headspace coming into work, leaving work, right? If we look at like who you are and what you want to do, your behaviors of life, if those start to align with what you deeply want, your output here is going to be amazing. We're really not going to talk about a ton of work jargon. I'm not going to have to get on your ass with things. So that's why it's the same approach that I'm taking with improving you guys as a team. You take the same approach with yourself, you take the same approach with the client. Right? How we do this is, there's no script. Right? If we're following a script, we're completely defeating the purpose of this. But there is a practice to it, right? There's a practice of building awareness of your body language, the words you select, your eye contact, your vocal tone. There's an art of practicing these things and being intentional about, I'm going to change my posture because it seems as though I'm giving this off, rather than if Jarrell's sitting like this, I'm going to do this because he's going to connect in with me, and then I can get deeper into trust so that I can sell him. But it's more in the sense of like, my goal is to connect with him. So I'm being mindful of his body language and mine. I'm listening to his word selection and mine. Making sense? Okay. And we'll get to the practice at another point. So we establish trust. To reiterate, non-verbal language or verbal language is all the little subliminal cues, but then also acknowledging. You can even say, look, you don't know me. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. Okay? Go as deep as you want. Look at it in the sense of, this is a new gym. It can be very intimidating. There's a lot going on. I want to help immerse you into an experience that excites you every time you come in, right? Just like name exactly what's going on. You have no idea how much mental work they did to just sit in front of you. It also could be in the sense of like, they're a super gym goer or gym bro or gym girly, and they love this place. So now it's like, ooh, let's optimize. Let's look at what you're doing here. Let me really push you now. So that's where we're talking empathy. Do I need to help peel back layers right now and sit in the seat and really kind of show up for this person and listen and intently be with them? Or do I have to sit in an empathetic seat of pushing them to go into a direction, take a step that they've been struggling to do with what they deeply want to do? The most empathetic thing that we can say sometimes is the hard truth, right? So that's where that number one comes in. Number two, this is just questions. Keep asking questions. Listen to their words. Everybody's super intentional with their words, right? Even if you don't realize it. If someone tells you right off the gate that they splurged on this membership, they're already taking into a language of like, how is their financial relationship, right? How is their money relationship? Because if this seems like a huge investment for them, we want to look at it in the sense of like, okay, it's amazing. What motivated you to invest in yourself already? I really respect the fact that you invested in yourself, right? So just listen to the word, go in that direction. They might tell you a story about, their father had a heart attack and that's why they're there. They could be sitting in front of you for, a Pilates intro, right? They're just trying to get the wheels going. It's like, whoa. So that's really why you're here. I'm gonna turn this more into like a goal setting session. I've got a lot of questions. I would rather do this first, then we can go to a Pilates session where I can provide a ton of value, but I need to know like where you're at with your health and fitness first, right? So we can connect to them by just seeing where they are and being the mirror for them so that they can build the awareness through just, okay, here's where you want to go. Why do we want to go there? What's underneath that goal, right? And then hold up the mirror, finding solutions of like, okay, you say you want to get to here, but you've been doing these things which get you to here. We got to bring you over and start to align feelings and behaviors, right? Connecting to them and their health, this is what we do all day long, right? It's talking goals, it's SMART goals. We're looking at just the reps, the sets, the weight, the cardio, their sleep, just get into the weeds, paint a super detailed picture. Not necessarily like, okay, if you want to lose 20 pounds, how do you want to measure it? Do you want to do numbers? Do you want to do pictures? Do you want to do both? How is your relationship with a scale? Are we tracking every week? Do you like data? Do you not like data? Paint the picture, right? Most people are going to think gym, nutrition. Let's look at the sleep, let's look at stress, let's look at the fact that everything they do in their life influences their health and fitness outcomes. So ask them about all of them. What questions do we have on these three? It all makes sense.
I guess like sometimes you would have to cut your losses if you're trying to peel back the layers, asking questions, trying to probe, and they're kind of getting noticing maybe the body language that they're actually becoming more defensive. Maybe it's best to just,
Yeah,
get right into more about fitness and health, like pivot on the spot.
100%.
Yeah, it's about taking it one question at a time, gauging their response.
Exactly. And steer the runway that they will give you. Right? So if someone comes in, you're like, all right, tell me about your health and fitness, and they start talking about hormonal health, like, all right, let's plug away in a hormonal health conversation. But if we start talking nutrition, like, whoa, I don't want to go there, or they have no interest talking about it. You can tell they're gonna basically tell you in words or not words if they want to talk about something. So if your entry point into getting into this is through, talking about the stock market, then go there. Go there. If you can tell they're very interested in improving their strength training, go strength train. Ask these questions in a language of improving their strength training. You'll get there anyways. All roads lead to Rome. Okay. So something I'm going to send all of you. A few of you have already read it. I wrote a manuscript. It's called The Carrot Man. It's essentially just a structure of how to look at all of this. It's not perfect. It's in a language that made sense to me, but hopefully it simplifies things for you. I'll send you all of it. It's 130 Google Doc pages, so it's a bit of a read. So take your time with it. No rush. But to explain it, so the story is fun, so I'll share it. I was trying to figure out why some clients would have small success and some would have life-changing success, and I would seemingly do the same things. And then I would look at why some of my colleagues would have insane success with a client, and then I wouldn't. It's like, what's the difference? I know education-wise, XYZ, I know the consistencies of how it's showing up. So I was trying to figure it out. And so I was in a cabin in New Hampshire with my wife, and I just started writing everything that I had. So I drew a stick figure, and then I was like, okay, what are their goals? I drew them up into the sky. So we can say body fat percentage, skeletal muscle mass, run a mile, whatever. And then I looked at it, it's like, okay, what are they currently doing? No breakfast, 2 beers a night, 5 hours of sleep, literally everything and anything. Any behavior that seemingly was related. It's like, okay, that's what they're doing here. And just listed them all out. And then I looked at it in the sense of like, okay, where did the 5 hours of sleep come from? And I trailed it back. Let's say in their PhD program, that's what their routine was. They had such a load that they just developed 5 hours of sleep because they had to study and work and do all this stuff. So I just followed the history of each of these. So it's like, okay, where did the 2 beers come into play? 21, him and his dad would just do that every night. It was just like a bonding experience for them. Okay, great. No breakfast. Work schedule, whatever. And so every little behavior, every detail that I was able to get out of them, I would just find the starting point of that behavior. And I wanted to figure out, did they learn it? Or was it something that they just carved through the experience of life? Right? So by the end of it, it looked like this. And why it's called the Carrot Man is because I was very excited because it made perfect sense visually in my head now. I was like, oh my God, this is great. I was explaining it to my wife, and she was like, all right, I got one question. She was like, why is there a carrot in the middle of this? I was like, that's what you focused on? I was like, this is sick, this is beautiful. And she was like, yeah. So it was very funny, but then it actually worked out really well because I was like, all right, well, if it is a carrot, these are the roots, right? The sunshine over top. This is everything in the environment that's influencing its growth. I was like, wow, this is really, really cool. So sometimes, depending on the client, I will literally draw this out in front of them with them. Some of them I'll just mentally do this in my head. So in terms of where to go with questions, if someone just, as they tell us their story, I'm marking either on a sheet of paper or drawing it all of the behaviors, right? So 5 hours of sleep, no breakfast, let's say walk, 2K steps, 2 beers. These are all the things that came up. And so in my head, I'd keep a log of this, and I would look, okay, let me ask questions to trail this back. Once I trailed that back, and then I had an understanding, I would trail this back, trail this back, trail this back. And so I'd look at things, what things were forged and carved over just experiences of life, and what things do they just not seem to know a different way? They just learned it through childhood or something, right? And then I would find the lowest hanging fruit. So if it is something that they just learned through childhood, it might be a little bit harder to change just because it is built into their identity, right? So through education, having them understand, like, which is why I'll explain sometimes, like, these behaviors create. We change behaviors, we can change the creation. And then I'll ask them, okay, so we can identify these 4 need to change. What solutions you got? Let them fix themselves, right? So it's like, if I can educate and explain, like, 5 hours of sleep is going to sabotage literally anything. We need it, let's shoot for, depending on their schedule, maybe it's 6, maybe it's 7, maybe I'll tell them, like, you need the full 8, whatever it is. It's like, how do we actually get this? Have them start doing the math in their head of figuring out how it's possible. And I say, okay, so here's the plan, here's the plan, here's the plan, here's the plan. They came up with it, or we built it together. Intrinsic motivation is high because they're tied into it. So it's going to be easier to find adherence versus me just telling them something. Right? So that's where educating can help solidify it into their head as being important. Like, this happens to me a lot, but how many times have you noticed you'll suggest something to a client, and then like 6 months later, they're like, oh, I listened to a podcast and I started doing X, Y, Z. It's like, are you serious? Like, what the hell? But it's just because the deliverable needs to be different, or they had to hear it 20 different times and caught them at the perfect time. Like, it doesn't matter. You still planted a little bit of the seed, and that's the important thing. It doesn't matter where it came from as long as they get there, right? Like, even if they fire you because they mentally were just not able to click everything in, but 6 months later you see that they completely changed their health and fitness. You're like, what did you do? Sometimes it'll just be, honestly, they hit rock bottom and they just were in a really mentally hard place. That's why they stopped working with you. But they hit the low and they finally started rising. It's like, that's all that matters. And that's hard sometimes for our egos. But anyways, so that's where the solution comes into play. Questions on this?
Is there a reason you break this up for some people but not others?
Yeah, depending on the person, they'll either not be following along, or you can just tell that they're not going to be necessarily like an overly analytical person, or they're not going to be super like data driven. Like for me, I needed to visually write this and see this for me to understand the plan in order to actually take action on doing this. So I would be somebody like, I need this drawn out. If I can see this conception, I'll make sense of literally every detail of my day makes a difference. I'll change every detail tomorrow. Some other people, you need to put in, like, scientifically, sleep is influencing our hormones. We also are expiring a ton of our fat when we're breathing, and that happens a ton when we're sleeping. So we shorten that window, hormones are going to be crap. We're going to jeopardize our metabolic output, whatever. But explain to them like the science of it. So it's just more of you just get a feel of who's sitting in front of you and what language they need to deliver. Yeah, it's a nuanced art in a sense of things, but just through practice, you'll start picking it up. What other questions?
I guess the hardest thing would be try or dig with the behaviors that are subconscious, the ones that just came into your life. I guess that would maybe be eye-opening to some people. It could be a little scary. I guess depends on everyone, but that sifting through the subconscious versus what's consciously a behavior that is important to distinguish between the two.
Yeah, it's super important, and that's where there's no easy understanding of where there's a yellow sign to start slowing down.
So I guess the question is, do you get, like for instance, a baseline, and you keep working upon this as you continue to see that? Like you dig a little bit deeper, or you just kind of want to get to the root as quick as possible?
As efficiently as possible, right? So if I start talking about the 2 beers,
Right.
like when did this start coming up as a habit for you? 10 years ago. All right, what kind of triggered it to form 10 years ago? Their ex-wife was an absolute nightmare. It's like, okay, so was, depending on their body language, their word selection, they're either going to be fine and have processed their divorce, or it's going to be a rough spot. So I'll either be like, okay, that's good to know, and then I'm going to assume, okay, those beers were in place of some emotional blunting. But depending on if they're cool with it, I'll just ask like, okay, so were you basically like emotionally going to these beers? Was it to dampen like a heavy household? Was like, what's going on? And then I'll ask a little bit bluntly.
Yeah.
But I also won't ask at all depending on.
Gotcha.
But if they can see, like, okay, so it started 10 years ago, tied to ex-wife, and if they say I don't want to go there, it's like, okay, but I still ask them a question, their brain is going to have to go there.
Right.
That's the important thing. They already start.
Yeah.
We just don't have to go into it.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
What other questions? Nick, you have another?
processed it versus haven't processed it because they're still doing it either way.
Yeah, because all of these behaviors are in place, they create this identity framework of how they live their life based on basically who they perceive themselves to be, right? So if someone has tons of hate for a divorce that they were once in, some of their behaviors would have been formed in response to that part of their life unprocessed. And so if we start probing into some of those behaviors, it's going to start lighting the hate fire. And not only are they going to not be that receptive to you, but we're going to be going into like shattering a framework of who they are, while it needs to happen in order for them to actually have success for their health and fitness. It doesn't necessarily have to happen right away, but because there's so much emotion tied to it, and so much of their identity attached to it, they don't necessarily realize. If we go too deep, if we push, if we pry, if we dig, we're going to create this really unsettling in them. They're going to have a really crappy rest of their day. They might quit the gym. They're sure as heck not going to work with you. So we just have to be delicate in the sense of like we're probing into things. No breakfast. It could be as simple as like, yeah, work just became the priority and sleeping in an extra 10 minutes is what I chose to do. Or there could be some really deep reason of why they're not having breakfast, and we have to probe very lightly. So it's a delicate game, but that's why we got to figure out, is it processed or unprocessed? Because if it's processed, it's time to push. If it's unprocessed, it's time to pull. Any other questions on this? Okay, so we're going to practice a little bit. It's very, very simple. Most of us have thought about a lot of our health and fitness stuff, but see how far back you can go. See the deepest layer of where does the love piece come in, right? So as I expressed last week in the meeting, a lot of mine is attached to my dad, almost all. And so for me, going back layer by layer by layer by layer trails me back to when I was like 7 or 8 years old. And so for me to actually create change that doesn't just hit a wall at some point or feels like it's white knuckle discipline, I need to understand that so that I can release the attachment to those stories. So choose, you can talk about what you want to talk about. This is hopefully a safe space for you. Choose a delicate area or an area where you're like, I don't know why it's such a hard area for me to improve my behaviors. You might have literally no idea. Start there, but just choose like one topic each. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, let's do it.